Hello everyone. I, Dr. Pritika Bahar from Department of Artificial Intelligence and Data Science, welcomes you all to Prestige Institute of Engineering Management and Research lecture series. In today's session, we will discuss upon the core subject of BTech Artificial Intelligence and Data Science, that is AD-801 Big Data. The topics that we are going to consider in today's session is Big Data characteristic, evolution of Big Data. We will also discuss upon how traditional data is different from Big Data. So let's have some definitions of big data given by different standard statistician firms. So let's have the first definition as big data refers to the data set whose size is beyond the ability of typical database softwares to capture, store, manage and analyze. As per Oxford Dictionary, big data is data of very large size, typically to the extent that its manipulation and management present significant logistical challenges. Coming to the Wikipedia definition, big data is referred as high volume, high velocity, high variety information asset that require new forms of processing for enhanced decision making, insight discovery, and process optimization. As per McKinsey Global Institute, big data refers to data sets whose size is beyond the ability of typical database software tools to capture, store, and manage and analyze. If we consider the characteristics associated with big data, there are three defining V's associated with big data characteristics. These V's are volume, velocity, and variety. In many references, you will find 4 V's associated. Nowadays, also 7 V's are associated as characteristics of big data. So, when we are considering core V's, these V's are volume, velocity, variety, and veracity. Let's have a look what does it mean. So when it comes to volume refers to quantity and size of data. It may be we are having large amount of data, that is petabyte of data is to be stored. So that is the volume relation. If we consider variety represents the type and nature of data. Variety may include semi-structured, structured or unstructured data. Now, when it comes to the third V, it is velocity. Velocity refers to the frequency of generation of data at the same time processing of data. Now, when we collect the data may have different value for different assets, and that is referred as veracity. Let's have another pick for understanding the volume, velocity, variety, and veracity parameters. Volume, as said, data at rest but having large size like terabytes to exabyte of existing data to process. If we are having data in motion, it is streaming data that is to be processed in milliseconds or seconds to respond, then it is the velocity property of big data. When it comes to data in many forms, it shows that there is lots of variety in the data that we are collecting. It may be structured, unstructured, likewise text or multimedia. Now, when it comes to veracity, let's have a quick discussion over the veracity factor. Veracity represents data in doubt. We are uncertain about how the data is. We are having ambiguities within the data, so that is referred to as veracity. As discussed, volume refers to the size of data, velocity refers to the speed of generation of data, and at the same time we have to process it as well. Veracity refers to different forms and formats. Likewise, if we have a Facebook related data, it may include text, audio, video, or click stream. So some of the data may be structured, some of the data may be unstructured, or few of the data may be semi-structured as well. Now, when it comes to the veracity factor refers to the quality of the data. It may be the data that we are collecting is having multiple null values, duplicacy, or it may be some statistical error within the data. So before going for analysis of the data, one must go for first cleaning of the data so that it can give a good analytical result. So purity of information is critical for the value asset. Now, coming to one of the most important part, how big data is evolved over the time. So when it comes to the traditional databases, it says that initially we have started with ERP. That is, it may be we are having EDPs, EDP is we are having electronic data processing system, information system, or it may be management information system, which is simple in scenario. It can be processed easily, and the data is varying up to megabytes. Now, the evolution of the data patterns, the next set of ERP systems come across in 1990s to 2000. In this era, the data is a lot more complex as compared to the previous EDP and information system. But at that time as well, the data is in gigabytes. Now, coming to the next phase, it is web data, the data that is generated through the internet. Now, when it comes to the web data time is generally considered as the era of 2000 to 2010. Within the data, we are having semi-structured and structured data in it. Likewise, the JSON format, or it may be we can consider the XML format as well. So, web data is the data that is generated or considered as the data that is generated between the time 2000 to 2010. Now, as per the current status, if we consider the complexity of current data that is generated, it is having the size from terabytes to petabytes. And this data is having the unstructured data type as well. So big data formats are also evolving, and the processing requires specific or the standard software that can process it in a and real-time manner. So when it comes to big data has evolved from simple structured system like EDP and ERP to semi-structured and structured system as web data. And nowadays we are having the big data that is having structured, unstructured, and semi-structured data pattern. Now, these data is crucial for understanding and for decision making. Now, comparing traditional versus big data, when it comes to the traditional data, if we come up with the first parameter, that is data size, traditional data generally ranges from gigabytes to terabytes. But when it comes to big data, its size ranges from petabyte to zettabyte. Traditional data format only includes the structured format, whereas the big data having structured, semi-structured, or unstructured format. In traditional data, we are having a specific system that is storing all the data at a time, that is fixed one. Whereas in case of big data, we have to process the data that is coming in real time, that is streaming data is to be processed. So the flow of data is continuous in case of big data. Now, when it comes to traditional data, we may have related data and the pattern within the data is known to you before processing. Whereas in case of big data, the data that is to be processed, we don't know how there is interrelationship between the data exists. So we have to identify the data relationship in case of big data. Now, when it comes to traditional databases, it's quite easy. Traditional data can be stored on a single machine, that is, a centralized data processing can be done in traditional data. But when it comes to big data, we have to use distributed data formats. So storage mechanism for traditional data is single machine, whereas in case of distributed or big data, we have to follow distributed storage over multiple nodes. And for that, in future, we will discuss upon how data or big data is stored in HDFS, that is a core component of Hadoop. So what we have learned today, we have discussed about big data characteristic, evolution of big data, traditional versus big data. The books that we have referred for designing these PPTs are uh, given in this slide. In the next session, we will discuss upon technologies available for big data, infrastructure for big data.